To all those people watching, I like to remind everyone that this video is not made for kids. It's for older fans and adults. Enjoy the fucking video! Millie is one of the engines working on Sir Robert Norramby's estate at Olstead Castle. Many years ago, she used to serve during the First World War pulling trains on the Trench Railway. After the war, she served some time working in a quarry in France until she was withdrawn from service, and was then sold to Sir Robert Norramby during his world travels. During the busy months at Olstead, she would sometimes help Glyn and Stephen with tour trains around the castle for visitors who had come to visit, and she helps the groundskeepers who keep the estate and the castle in shape. After many years working at the castle, Millie had gained much knowledge about it for the passengers, and whenever the Earl hosts a special gala day for the engines, she would sometimes tell visitors the practices of an engine that runs on a narrow gauge railway. Everyone admires her and enthusiasts love taking her photographs. "Oh, merci, merci," she said gloatingly. However, Duke and Stanley would get a bit annoyed with Millie being all puffed up in the smokebox. "That old girl thinks she's the only narrow-gauge engine on this estate," huffed Stanley crossly. "We know the practices too." Duke agreed, but then he said, "Millie might know many things, but I don't think she knows everything. But she will learn in due time." Hello everybody, welcome to the island of Sodor. It was a crisp, cold November morning, and at this time of year less people come to visit the castle since they would rather be warm inside their own home now that winter was approaching. Sir Robert Norramby came to see his engines. "Millie, due to your hard work during the year, I had arranged with Mr. Percival to let you do work on the Scarloe." Millie was excited. "Oh, merci, sir," she whistled. "But who will look after my work with the groundskeepers?" "Well, Stanley will be doing that," replied the Earl happily. "Yes, sir," replied the American tank engine. "We still have some visitors to bring, but Duke will be looking after the passengers until we close for the Christmas-New Year break, since there would be less. So no need to worry. Go and enjoy work on the Scarloe." So Millie puffed happily away. She likes working on the Scarloe Railway, and she gets a chance to stretch her wheels. The only time she goes beyond the castle estate was to the Blue Mountain Quarry to collect slate for whatever repairs were needed at the castle. Millie helps out pulling passenger trains and slate trains from the quarry, and she sometimes takes the maintenance train for Rusty or Fred. One evening Mr. Percival came to see his engines. "There's going to be a group of local school children coming to our railway in a few days on a trip to learn about railways. Do I have a volunteer?" In almost an instant, Millie blew her whistle. "I'll do it, sir, I'll do it," she peeped. "All right, settle down, Millie," chuckled the thin controller. "Thank you for volunteering. The Crovens Gate Public School will be arriving here by bus at 9 a.m. on Friday." "Merci, sir. I know all about the operations of a narrow-gauge railway." "Very good, Millie, and I hope you make a fine teacher for the children as well." "Cheerio." Sir Handel was also annoyed by Millie's know-it-allism. "You don't know everything about narrow-gauge operations," he huffed. "You spent most of your life in that castle of yours." This made Millie cross. "I do know everything," she stated. "I worked in trenches and quarries, not just Olstead, you know. You're just jealous that I am taking the children on Friday." "Not everything," scoffed Sir Handel. "Have you ever heard of gravity trains?" Millie looked puzzled, but she didn't want to look foolish in front of Sir Handel. "Yes, I do," she said. "Really? You sound hesitant there. Are you sure you know what it is?" I said yes, replied Millie crossly. Well, if you say so, Sir Handel said smugly, and he then went to sleep. What are gravity trains? Pondered Millie in thought. Friday arrived and the bus rolled towards the station where Millie was waiting with her coaches. Okay, children, called the teacher. Before we head on to our train, we're going to visit the sheds first to see how they maintain the engines. So let's follow our guide today and he'll explain all the details about it. Thank you, Miss Margate. This way, children, replied a workman, and they soon followed him and their teacher to the sheds. They were taught everything from replacing a spring to polishing an engine's boiler. They thought it was fun. Millie was waiting at the station, and she was still thinking about Sir Handel's mention of gravity trains. What are you thinking about, Millie? Asked Sir Handel. Millie broke out of her trance. Oh, nothing really. Replied Sir Handel slyly. What? Asked Millie crossly. Nothing really, I thought you were thinking about gravity trains. Millie rolled her eyes. Of course I know, Sir Handel. Just leave me alone and stop being a pest. Okay. I was just checking, chuckled Sir Handel, and he puffed away, still chuckling to himself. Silly Sir Handel, hissed Millie. Later the children arrived at the station, and after they climbed aboard, Millie puffed away. Millie made a stop at a station so the children could learn about them. They'd even visited the Ministry of Defence's base. While Millie was waiting, one of the MOD engines came towards her and smiled. Hello, I'm George, he said. Very nice to meet you, George. My name's Millie. Then she asked George if he knew what gravity trains are. I do know my driver watched this show from Japan about steam engines whirling around in space, but I don't think that's what you were referring to, replied George. Oh, well, thanks anyway. And after that, the children were on board and Millie was on her way again. They stopped at Lakeside Station so the children could have their lunch in the nearby cafe. Millie waited in the station, and soon the children came towards her and asked her questions about herself and the railway. Millie smiled and she told her all the stories and facts she could think of. The children were impressed. Then she asked, Do you kids know about gravity trains? I know what they are, cried a boy. They are. But before he could give Millie her answer, the teacher cried out, Okay kids, hop on board now. And so the children did, leaving Millie in a huff. All day was trying to know what on earth are gravity trains. And she puffed crossly away. They came to their final stop, the Blue Mountain Quarry. They were to ride on Luke's brake bands to show the kids how the quarry operates. As Luke puffed away, a workman arrived to see Millie. Could you lend a buffer with the trucks here, Millie? He asked. Sure, sir, replied Millie, and she puffed away, shunting trucks here and there into their sidings, and taking full ones to the transfer yards. She was so busy dealing with trucks that she had forgotten about the idea of gravity trains. When the work was done, Millie went to have a rest in a siding. It's nice taking children, but all the same, I love doing a spot of work. And she closed her eyes. But then she woke to the sound of some trucks running down a steep grade heading towards the entrance. Sacre bleu! She exclaimed. Runaway trucks! Driver, we must stop them! But what about the children? He asked. Well, we can't take the children back to Province Gate if there was an accident, cried Millie. The driver knew she was right, and so the chase was on. The trucks rattled along the line as Millie was going as fast as she could. She was tired, but she kept on puffing, determined to stop any disaster from happening. At the transfer yards, Millie whistled frantically. Look out! Look out! She yelled as she raced through the yards. Runaway trucks! The other engines heard the commotion and saw the trucks rolling slowly into the yards. and finally they stopped. Millie and the others were relieved. Then she heard the door for the guard's van opening up, and out stepped one of the children. "This is the best school trip ever," she said happily. Millie was surprised. "But it was a runaway, I saw it. Where's the teacher?" "I'm right here," she replied. Now Millie was even more confused. Then the guard explained that he was showing the children the old ideas of the Skarloey, and one of those old ideas was gravity trains. Sir Handel laughed. I knew it, he chortled. "Millie doesn't know what gravity trains are," and he hollered and laughed, leaving Millie feeling very embarrassed. Paxton hushed Sir Handel, while the teacher and guard looked towards Millie and smiled sympathetically. "We don't have an engine," replied the guard. "And the children need to get home," added the teacher. "Could you take us?" they asked. So Millie did, and she puffed back to the quarry, while the guard was teaching the children about how trucks were taken back to the quarry after they delivered the slate to its destination. They returned to the quarry, and Millie puffed away with her passengers back to Province Gate. Along the way, she then realized something. "I may not know about gravity trains before," she said to herself, "but I do know now."